stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States, to the republic, one nation, under God, indivisible. All right, roll call, please.
Trustee Pierce is absent. Trustee Masek?
Here.
Trustee Peterson?
Here.
Trustee Bluthard is here, but not with us right now. Trustee Berman?
Here.
Trustee Dominiac?
Here.
Mayor Gardner?
Here. We have 2 trustees attending remotely. No approval is needed. First item on the agenda is I need a motion and a second for approval of the September 8th Committee of the Whole meeting minutes as presented.
So moved.
Motion, Trustee Peterson,
Second.
second Trustee Berman. Discussion. All right, roll please.
Masek?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Berman?
Yes.
Dominiac?
Abstain.
3 voting yes, 0 no, 1 abstains, motion carries. I have a couple acknowledgements that we'd like to do in the beginning of the meeting. The first one is just a couple of weeks and months that are on the calendar annually. This is Fire Prevention Week, so we want to note that, again, this is Fire Prevention Week, and instead of a proclamation, we are going to acknowledge these days. Another important thing that we'd like to recognize is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, so we always want to make sure that we're thinking about those groups and supporting those groups. Individually, first person I would like to acknowledge is Deborah Rentner, who I believe is here tonight, and I see Mike O'Mara. Anybody else here from Oakland Knolls Homeowners Association? Okay. I'd like to thank them and Deborah for their hard work in putting together the 9/11 memorial service. It came together very well. I think it was well received and it met the right tone for the day and the event. We as a village were looking to do something, and Deborah's group had already been ahead of the curve on that, and we were lucky enough to join in with that event with Deborah. And again, I'd like to thank you for doing that. I know it's not the only event you do. There's other events that yourself and Mike put on there, whether it be Veterans Day, Memorial Day, as well as different picnics and events for Oakland Knolls Homeowners Association. So thank you for your efforts in that regard. Secondly, we have a couple of people going out or stepping down from service from certain boards that I wanted to recognize. One is Cedric Johnson, who will be here at a later date from the Parks and Rec Board. But we do have Gina Wolf here, who has been on the board, I guess, since 2006, so 15 years on the board. I recently learned that she was going to be stepping down and had, I guess, kids in college. Is that the thing? Traveling and doing other things, and we get it. She's put in her time and done a good job. And I will say that anytime I've been at a parks event, whether it be a Thursday night concert or a street market, Gina is usually always pretty much there. So we appreciate your service to the Parks Board, and thank you. And if any other spots ever open up again on any other boards, please feel free to rejoin us. All right, thank you. All right, and last but not least, I would like to, as you've heard me say earlier in the year, our excellent finance director, Joy McCarthy, is retiring at the end of this year, coming up pretty quickly here. And we did do a search and interview for a new finance position. Jim Kime and Lori did the initial interviews. And although we had very good candidates across the board, one stood out, and she is here with us tonight, has accepted this position. So Zeta Torres is here tonight. She will be the new finance director for the Village of Antioch, coming on board October 11th, I believe. Okay, and you'll see her here. If you're wondering who she is, and Joy will be working on keeping everything, training her, and moving our good financial position forward to the next hand. So we are in good hands with Joy, and we'll be in good hands with Zeta. So thank you for joining us. I believe much experience in municipal finance, municipal administration, currently working for the Palatine Park District as their finance director. So she will be joining us soon. Thank you. You will not be taking questions tonight. Okay. All right. Next, citizens wishing to address the board for the committee of the whole meeting. So if anybody is on Zoom, please hit the icon to raise your hand or let Amy know that you wish to address the board. Otherwise, there will be another opportunity to address the board during the regular board meeting. Sir, you can come up and address the board. And just for clarification, public can address the board once at the beginning of each meeting. So at the beginning of this meeting, and then there'll be another open session at the beginning of the next meeting. So just so people know that to get out whatever they want to say and address us. Thank you.
I was committee of the whole meeting, and I was trying to get the parking moved down a few
Sorry,
houses.
sir, can you say your name?
John Draper. I was hoping the board would see my point of view on it and move the parking a couple houses north of where it is on Victoria Street. I know we discussed it in the last meeting.
Sure. And I know this is one of the items of the regular board meeting, so there will be general discussion by the board and a vote at the meeting, which probably will start sooner than 7 o'clock, but so I encourage you to stick around so you can address the board too.
All right.
All right, thank you. All right, anybody else? All right, if not, regular business, only item on the committee of the whole meeting is a discussion regarding the rental ordinance presented by Michael Garrigan. And let me just let me make a comment about this when I saw this in the packet. This is strictly to discuss a rental ordinance regarding the condition of properties strictly for the protection of tenants. Anything else that was submitted with the packet is irrelevant to what we're discussing tonight. Specifically, when I looked at the packet, there is a section in additional information that Mr. Garrigan supplied from 2017 or 19? 2019. And it's really all laid out under expert topic number 1, rental regulations on pages 13 and 14. That is really going to be the limitation of what we're going to discuss tonight.
Thank you, Your Honor. The only reason I provide that material is that this issue was discussed a couple of years ago, so I just kind of wanted to refresh the village board's memory on this matter was previously discussed. We had the mayor's caucus come in and do a really nice presentation. So I think the question is before tonight, before the village board, is whether there would be potentially any support for a rental ordinance. What I tried to do is just simply incorporate several questions that hopefully we can discuss tonight. The first question is, does the current conditions of existing multifamily stock in the Antioch require some type of registration or inspection? I think the real question is there any concern about some of the conditions of multifamily units in Antioch? I know historically there has been some expressed concerns about some deteriorating conditions. But I think that's the first fundamental question that's before the board this evening. The second discussion point I'd like to discuss, if there is a problem, if there is a perceived problem with some existing properties, with the conditions, are there existing properties in the Antioch which have been identified as potentially needing some attention and specifically the potential for inspections? So is there a perceived problem? I think the second question that should be considered this evening as it relates to multifamily properties. And finally, if there is perceived as a problem, what is the best recourse, the best way to address that? As I've outlined in my staff report, because we are not home rule, there are some specific limitations as it relates to any type of potential drafting of a rental ordinance. Specifically, what we cannot do by state law or actually federal law is require them to be licensed. But We can legally, it appears, to have some type of registration requirement. As we speak, we have no way to really track who are the landlords, emergency contacts. So I think there's a whole litany of things that a registration would potentially provide some benefits, not only for staff, but for emergency services. So that would be the first aspect. There's also appears that this law has upheld for non-home rule communities, specifically inspection, some type of limited inspection protocol. So right now, we don't inspect these rental units, multifamily units in the village. So there's a vacancy, unless there's some type of emergency, or we simply have no inspection protocol. So the second question is, would it be appropriate to establish some type of inspection protocol for multifamily units in Antioch? So I wanted to raise some of these questions. There is no specific proposed ordinance. We have, I think, 2 templates that have really have been legally challenged and upheld. Both, I believe, in Zion and Round Lake Beach, as you recall, or maybe you don't recall. A couple of years ago, we had the mayor of Round Lake Beach kind of walk through their ordinance. Again, kind of highlighting the same goals. And the fundamental purpose of this ordinance is really to address the quality of life of the tenants. We want to make sure that tenants have full opportunity to live in quality housing. I think some board members or the board has historically reiterated that's very important. So it's really focused on making sure that the safety and general welfare of the tenants who are residents of Antioch have an opportunity to live in safe and habitable housing. So as we speak, there's really no protocol to ensure that. So we wanted to start the discussion. Again, there's really no proposed ordinance that's before you this evening. Before we maybe get in the weeds on the exact language, we wanted to see if there's general support for this. And my PowerPoint, I just incorporate some of the pictures. We have some units which are very well maintained, and then we have some multifamily units which perhaps are less well maintained in the village. So with that, I'm really looking forward to your discussion, your input on this overall topic.
Thank you, Mike. And let's put them on the spot. One of the reasons that this also came up to me was, and I don't know if Jeff will speak to this at all, some of the places that I've heard about or seen that the police have visited or gone into on the ground. I think Jeff can maybe speak to that briefly on what they see in some of these units.
Sure. So due to my experience over the last couple of decades working in this town, I've been in a lot of these multifamily apartments, many that you would probably drive by and name as being concerning to you would probably be the same ones that would be on my list. We've got, as Michael said, we got some very good landlords. We've got some very bad landlords. Some are more responsive to problems for tenants, and others are less responsive. But we do not have a shortage of multifamily housing that's been allowed to deteriorate into what would be unhealthy conditions, in my personal opinion. We've done into some, garbage is allowed to pile up. Certainly electrical problems, water leaks, poorly maintained roofs, that sort of thing. Vermin, raccoons living in attics. We've worked with landlords over the years to try to rectify that with planning and zoning. Some, as I said, have been responsive. Others, due to just kind of a lack of leverage, have just neglected their properties and allowed those problems to continue. Let their tenants continue to reside in those conditions.
Michael, I have one more question. You're not proposing to have like an annual inspection across the board for all rental units, correct? That's
No, I mean, I think our goal, and again, subject to legal counsel's input, it's also been what we call performance-based inspection. So obviously those properties which have, have consistently been maintained, we would have a very limited schedule for inspections. It would be, maybe biannually or every 3 or 4. We would have to discuss the specifics once we have an actual ordinance. It would be more focused on the actual problem properties based on complaints. So that's really open for discussion. What is appropriate in regards to inspections? We do have some limitations with manpower, so we probably don't have the current manpower to be very direct to inspect properties, every property every year, unless we hired more manpower. So that would be one of the challenges we would have. So again, when we had the mayor's caucus in here, we discussed more of a, what we call performance-based ordinance, which is based more on the actual facts on the ground, as highlighted by the police chief. Obviously, we have some properties which are problematic as their current condition, and we do get some complaints about those properties. So it's not a secret what properties those are.
Thank you. All right, discussion. Trustee Pierce. Oh, he's not here. Trustee Mason.
Mike, in the past, there was discussion, Zion and Round Lake Beach, I believe, filed lawsuits. They were in court pending constitutionality on the subject matter. We held off based off the fact that we didn't want to litigate something. We wanted to wait till they litigated to find out where the stance was on constitutionality of the act. Two, how are we going to fund the inspectors? I understand, I'm with the police chief, that something has to be done because where they're deteriorated, it seems that's where stuff happens. So those are my two questions.
Well, I had to have an opportunity to talk the legal basis with counsel, with attorney, and we specifically kind of on a very preliminary basis discuss Zion and some of the legal challenges they've had. And I think I'll maybe defer to Mr. Vasali to kind of outline what specifically has been challenged as it relates to Zion's ordinance and how that ordinance was modified to adhere to all the constitutional requirements.
Of course, thank you, Mike. So our firm represents the city of Zion, and one of my partners, Cynthia Granfield, is actually the lead counsel on our end with regards to that, working with Insurance Defense Counsel. Before we present anything in particular, we will issue a memo to the board that will outline the parameters of what was deemed constitutional and unconstitutional. The constitutionality argument gets bandied around a lot, but it is not as prolific as people say it is. The Fourth Amendment gets brought into it, but again, it has been challenged. The right to do limited inspections is clear for home rule and more applicably to us non-home rule units. So before we present a document, we will have a memorandum that will set forth the parameters of what has been challenged and where we think a challenge would end up. It'll be based off of actual litigation experience.
And then as it relates to the second question, Trustee Masek, at this point, we are not specifically proposing to bring on more staff. It will be subject to village board consideration or discussion. They think that's appropriate. Obviously, we would create a inspection process or protocol that would adhere to our current, inspector. So we have to work with their schedules. Again, our hope, subject to being from conforming to all legal and constitutional requirements, is to have more of a what we call performance-based ordinance, focusing and trying to work with the landlords who have problem properties.
Thank you. Anything else, Trustee
No,
Mason?
no, I'm good.
Trustee Peterson?
From a safety standpoint, for the people who rent apartments in Antioch, of course, we all want them to be safe and live in conditions that are good, and they don't have to put up with water and vermin living in their attics. But I'd like to see a draft ordinance and see, how this can be written to be in compliance with the law, but still protect the people who live here. That's all.
Thank you. Trustee Bluthart?
When I read over this, if I understand it, the registration portion of this is not up for debate in regards to is it constitutional or not, that it's legal for that end of it?
I believe that's been upheld, the registration requirements.
Because that portion, I think, is a no-brainer. Now, if there's legal issues in regards to the inspection process, maybe we could do this in a two-phase scenario where we put a registration process in and then work with the owners of those buildings and the renters to come up with an inspection ordinance that would take into account their consideration as well, but then also any legal action that happens in the meantime.
We can look at that. It's obviously with the attorney, when we'll prepare that memorandum, I think we'll specifically outline, what the questions are as it relates to creating an inspection protocol and how that can be defended.
But the registration portion, I think. is
Straightforward.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty simple.
Thank you. Trustee Berman?
I agree with trustee Peterson. I think that we do need to draft an ordinance for this. We feel that it is a big issue. People having to live in those conditions, and then knowing that we have people living in our town with those conditions, it's something definitely needs to happen. Make sure that landlords are doing what they're supposed to be doing. Whether it's, as trustee Bluthart stated, doing two-part phase. But my only concern with that is if we already have problematic landlords that aren't following the general protocol, I don't know if that's going to be very effective. Maybe for a little while, and then it'll resort back the way they were. So.
Thank you. Trustee Dominiac? Oh, I think you're on mute. You're on mute.
If I were to answer the 4 questions, I would state yes, that the current condition of the existing multifamily stock in Antioch requires some type of registration. I think that's a public safety and social justice issue. I would say that there is definitely is a problem with the condition of some of the multifamily properties in Antioch, which is a public safety issue. I think that we should have a role in ensuring that our tenants live in a safe place. I think that's a social justice issue, which is what I said about this before when we never went any further with it when it was first raised. And I would definitely support you drafting a rental ordinance, obviously, along with my colleagues that would have to meet constitutional standards. So I'm in support of this and would recommend that we move it forward.
Any other comment from the trustees? The only one, Trustee Masek, I don't see you, but if you have anything to follow up on, let us know. Otherwise,
Actually, Your Honor, if I could just add one more thing, I made a note and I oversaw it. The comment about manpower, for me, this falls under code enforcement. We had a discussion about this in the strategic planning session on Friday. I get a lot of complaints from people about the fact that we don't enforce code. So I think that whether it's related to this rental ordinance or just all of our ordinances in general that we're not enforcing, that when we go through the budget process, we should look at expanding our code enforcement capability. I think this would be part of that. That's all I have. Your Honor.
thank you. Trustee Masek, do you have anything follow up?
No.
Okay. Any objection from any of the board members on asking Michael and council to draft a draft ordinance? If not, we'll direct them to draft a draft ordinance and bring it to another committee of the whole meeting for discussion. All right. Thank you. Any other business for the committee of the whole meeting? All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Motion, Trustee Peterson.
Second.
Second, Trustee Bluthart. Roll, please.
Mason,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Bluthart,
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Miniac.
Yes.
5 yes, 0 no. Motion carries. Meeting's adjourned. We'll take a 5-minute break before we start the regular business meeting. All All right, call the meeting to order at 7:05. We will take roll for the regular meeting of the trustees. Madam Clerk.
Trustee Pierce is absent. Trustee Mason,
Here.
trustee Peterson,
Here.
trustee Bluthart,
Here,
trustee Berman,
Here.
trustee Dominiac. Trustee Dominiac.
Sorry, Mary, you are on mute.
Here, sorry, I thought I unmuted it.
And Mayor Gardner.
Present. First item on the agenda is the mayoral reports. Other than the fact that we have a busy weekend for the parks, with all the hundreds of people watching this, buy your wine walk tickets for the weekend and come out to the street market. So with that, we are also now going to move along. We have 2 open park positions, which means we now have 2 open alternate positions that are taking applications. But tonight we would like to appoint our alternate members as full members, Mark Searle and Jennifer Di Benedetto to the park board. Yep. Can I get a motion? Second to approve.
Second.
Motion trustee Bluthart, second trustee Peterson.
Is this for both appointments? Can we just clarify?
I'll make a motion to appoint both.
Thank you.
Second.
All right. Discussion. At least it's a good song. All right. Discussion. Okay. You have to bring it up. Okay, roll call, please.
Mason,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Bluthart,
Yes,
Berman,
Yes.
Dominiac.
Yes,
5 yes, 0 no, motion carries. You gotta come up here and do this oath again. You had to take the alternate off your last certificate. White out.
safe tonight.
Congratulations and thank you. All right, citizens wishing to address the board. I know, sir, you were addressed the board earlier at the committee of the whole meeting. Would you like to address anything more specific at the regular board meeting for the record? So again, when the ordinance comes up for vote, I want the trustees to hear, what you had to say specifically about the ordinance, if anything. No pressure. I just want to make sure you don't miss your opportunity.
Yeah, my name is John Draper. I live over on Victoria Street and by the intersection of Victoria and Hardin. And they made it parking on the east side of Victoria Street. I live 2 houses from the intersection. I'd like to see the parking moved north of my house by 1 house. So if there are cars parked there, and someone's turning off a Hardin, like a delivery van, there's a lot of deliveries nowadays, they have nowhere to get over if there are cars coming. And there has been issues where community officer has had to sit there and direct traffic for a school bus to make the corner or delivery vans. It needs to be a little further away from that intersection. I think it's a safety, not only for anybody getting in and out of my driveway, because my wife has a hard time seeing around cars when they're parked there, but just people driving down the road. It's too tight of an area right there.
Thank you. And I think it's the 3rd item on the regular agenda. If question?
Yeah, I just have a question. When this comes up,
Mhm.
I'd like to know his address and where exactly he is on this.
Sure, and I
Okay?
think Chief Gutchow will probably address that too. Yep.
Okay, thanks.
All right, anyone else wish to address the board? If not, consent agenda, we have 2 items on the consent agenda. Approval of the September 8th, 2021 regular meeting minutes as presented. And number 2, approval of a resolution authorizing the annual Christmas parade and tree lighting to be held on Friday, November 26th, 2021, resolution number 21-67. Does anyone wish to remove either of those items from the consent agenda? All right, if not, I would entertain a motion and a second for approval.
So move.
Motion trustee Bluthart,
Second,
second trustee Berman. Any discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Mason? Trustee Mason?
Yes.
Peterson?
yes.
Luther?
Yes.
Berman?
Yes.
Semeniak?
I'm going to abstain on 1 and say yes on 2.
All right, so
Can't do that.
trustee,
Well, then I'll abstain on both. That's the way we
Perfect.
used to do it, but I'm fine with abstaining on both.
perfect. Okay, so we have 4 voting yes, 1 abstaining, motion carries. Figure out. Next item on the agenda is, now we're on to the regular business agenda. Consideration and approval of payment of accounts payable as prepared by staff in the amount of $264,914.10.
So moved.
Motion trustee Peterson, second trustee
Second.
Dominiac. Second trustee Dominiac. Any discussion? All right, roll please.
Mason?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Luther?
Yes.
Berman?
Yes.
Semeniak?
Yes,
5 voting yes, 0 voting no, motion carries. Next item is consideration and approval of an ordinance amending Title 4 of the Municipal Code of Antioch regarding mobile food vehicles, ordinance number 21-7-23. I would entertain a motion to waive 2nd reading and a
so moved, waiving the 2nd reading.
motion trustee Dominiac waiving the 2nd reading.
Second,
Second trustee Dominiac. Discussion, please. Trustee Masek.
You know, I'm against this. I'll be voting no. I think it's unfair to the people that's, Station 51 spending all the money. You get the rivalry spending all the money. I just think it's an unfair practice. They're going to put food trucks, where Pittman property sits, couple 500 feet from their buildings. It just doesn't seem fair. It's just a kick in the rear end to those guys.
Trustee Peterson.
no comments, Your Honor.
Trustee Bluthart.
No comment.
Trustee Berman.
I do agree with Trustee Masek. I do think that as far as it for the businesses that are here right now, I think that it's depending on the type of food trucks that we're going to have there. It is. I just think it's too close. I don't think that it's right to be doing to our established businesses.
Trustee Dominiac.
I have 2 questions. What is the fine if they violate anything that's in here? That's not in the ordinance that I could find. But if you could direct me to it.
So trustee Dominiac, on page 5, it was amended as 415-6. It shows $100 for the first offense.
Okay,
Tuesday.
thank you.
Got it. Okay.
I see that now.
So yeah,
Yep.
100 up to 750 for the 4th. Yep.
Yeah, thank you. I slipped right by that. I apologize. Then my other question, and I apologize because I wasn't here for the last cow to discuss this. what was the rationale for saying not within 100 feet of a public park? I'm thinking about the Lions when they do their events. They had a, I think they had a food truck, but at Williams Park. Are we saying that no food trucks can be near a park or within 100 feet of a park? If someone wants to use Williams Park or Centennial Park for a function, they can't?
So I think, well, last time, I think we discussed it was originally 500, so we asked to move it 100 to everything to be consistent. And I maybe asked Michael, I think we discussed, and I have to go back and look at the ordinance to make sure it's in there, is that if somebody wanted to have an event at a village park or close to a park or school, that they could with village approval, but I don't know the section.
I don't see that. I see that within 100 feet of a school, if the school says it's okay, 100 feet of the library, if the library says it's okay. Now I can't find it here. It says no mobile
Yeah.
food vehicle shall operate in a location that is within 100 feet of the lot line of or the property line of a public park.
Yeah, I think what we're missing there, and I think it's a good catch. I think, we have without written permission of the school. I think we have without written permission from the library. I think what we're missing as the single amendment without the written permission of the village would be
So,
it'd be under section
yeah,
415-5
that's fine.
A
Right,
4-3. Got
three,
that?
right.
Right.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was looking at. So do we need to amend the motion to say that we're waiving it with these changes, or do we
Yes.
just?
Yeah.
So I don't know, did I make the motion or did I second it? I wasn't sure.
You seconded it. The only thing Madam Clerk did point out to me from a legal standpoint is section 4-15-5 does say it's prohibited within 100 feet of any standalone restaurant, coffee house, retail beverage dealer, with the exception of village-sponsored events.
But that's for item 1. It's not for item 3 under 4.
I think that if we want to amend the motion and waive the second reading, adding that with village approval, I think that makes that clear that it is protects the schools, the libraries, the village.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. So, but again, I don't know if I made the motion or I seconded it, but if I made it, I'll amend my motion to waive the second reading with that correction.
And I'll amend my second.
So noted. Any
That's
objection to that?
all I have. I think this
Okay.
is a terrific idea.
Okay, all right, second time around. Anybody have anything for discussion? Trustee Masick, I don't see on the board. Is it- Okay. If you have something, let me know. Otherwise, anybody here have anything else they'd like to discuss regarding this? Trustee Bluthart.
Well, I just wanted to point out that the comments made about protecting the existing restaurants. Right now, a food truck can sit in front of that restaurant. So without this ordinance in place, we don't have anything restricting where these food trucks could go. So this gets us a way of starting that process and putting something in place that, and eventually if we need to amend or change, if we find something that doesn't work, but I think it gives us a starting point and gives us a way of regulating these to some effect.
Trustee Peterson?
Yes, I've spoken to owners of restaurants in town, and taverns, bars, whatever you're gonna call them. They're all for it. They're all for it. It's not like the food trucks are gonna be out there every day. So they're just.
I got a pipe in, Mary. You say that every time you come in, you can't speak for other people without testimonies in writing. You do that all the time. So
Okay,
have those statements in writing,
Well,
valid.
okay, so let her finish, and Trustee Masick, I'll call on you next if you want any discussion the second time. And then Patrina, and then Mary's got one more shot, and then we do a roll call. All right.
No, I
Trustee-
just, sorry.
I'll go.
I was in the
Trustee
middle
Peterson.
of talk.
Yeah, Trustee Peterson's gonna finish her,
Okay.
her, what she needs to say.
Al Anderson, the owner of the Limerick Lounge, was in this room when we first discussed this, and he came to that meeting. And I said that night that he was for it, and he shook his head and nodded. He didn't get up and speak, but he didn't really want to. But he came here to just show support for this. So to Trustee Mason, I did speak to him.
Thank you. Trustee Basic, do you have anything you want to say?
Yeah, okay. Al Anderson came to a prior meeting. I asked for those minutes. I never got them. Al Anderson came to a meeting complaining about food trucks at a prior meeting that Mary Peterson wasn't part of. Okay. You cannot come to a meeting and say without statement, so-and-so said this. He did come to a meeting and support it, but he also came to a meeting, which is part of the minutes, which I asked the clerk to get me those minutes, which I didn't get those minutes where Al Anderson came to the meeting complaining, well, why is Toff Street shut down and food trucks put there, you're ruining my business. So he contradicted himself. I understand that. I've talked to several businesses too, and I don't raise that question. Well, I've talked to 100 businesses. I don't have written letters of statements to bring to a meeting. So what I say means nothing. Yeah, food trucks are just a bad idea. I'm gonna vote no, I'm gonna get outvoted. So this nonsense of I talked to so-and-so, they're not here. Al Anderson contradicted himself. I asked for those minutes, I didn't get them. So that's all I gotta say.
All right, thank you, Trustee Berman, then Trustee Dominiac.
The meeting that Al had attended and spoke at, I did bring up in that meeting about the possibility of reaching out to the business owners and asking them what their thoughts were on it, whether they'd be for it or against it. I didn't hear anything else about that. So I don't, not really sure where that stands. So
Trustee Dominiac?
I think that this is a terrific idea. The whole goal behind this is to assure that when food trucks come here, to Trustee Bluthardt's point, that we assure our residents and visitors that we are protecting their health and safety by licensing vendors. They're not going to be parking there every day of the week. I think this is a terrific idea. I think it's going to bring people into the community when we have festivals and other events. And I also think that at any point in time, any one of us as a representative of members of this community have the right to bring forth any comments that we hear from the community. People are not going to be writing written statements all the time, but I make decisions based on the people that I speak with. And I am not in the practice, nor do I intend to be in the practice of asking them to put everything in writing. So I too did speak to several businesses, and they thought it was great because it would bring more people into the community. So I think I'd like to call the question so that we can move forward on this.
All right, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mason,
No,
Peterson,
Yes.
Bluthart,
Yes.
Berman,
no,
Dominiac,
Yes,
Mayor Gardner.
Yes. 4 voting yes, 2 voting no, motion carries.
Just relative to the mayor's vote, I would like to acknowledge section 3.140-30. I'll read it in abbreviated part where applicable. The mayor shall not vote on any ordinance except in the instance of where 1/2 of the alderpersons or trustees, in this case, elected have voted in favor of an ordinance, resolution, or motion, even though there is no tie. So just recalling the procedural record, 3 trustees voted yes, 2 voted no, giving the mayor the right and the obligation to vote to pass an ordinance with 4 affirmative votes or 4 non-negative votes. I just want to make sure that's clear on the record. Thank you, everyone.
thank you for that.
I get to participate. Huh? Took a while. All right, next. Next is consideration and approval of an ordinance amending section 7-3-6 of the municipal code of Antioch regarding restricted parking, ordinance number 21-09-35. Entertain a motion and a second waiving the second reading if possible.
So moved.
So moved. Oh,
Waiving the second reading.
Second,
Motion,
Waiving the second
waiving the second reading by trustee Peterson, second by trustee Dominiac, waiving the second reading. Can I, Police Chief Gutchow, thank you.
Yes, to refresh everybody's memory, this was to deal with specifically with an issue that came to the traffic calming committee, dealing with kind of that called a wonky intersection of Victoria and Hardin. There's a bit of a jog in the intersection. Are dealing with some narrow roadways too, so it is arguably a challenging area to navigate. In conversations with Administrator Keim, in some of his engineering background, he felt that 30 feet would provide an adequate swing space for a school bus or a commercial vehicle traversing the area. Trustee Peterson asked for kind of a description of where Mr. Draper resides. And John, if I'm incorrect, the second house north of Hardin on Victoria, correct? 1061. So 30 feet carries the no parking restriction from the intersection well into Mr. Draper's southern neighbor's property. Following the last meeting, after speaking with Mr. Draper, we did do some satellite mapping of the area to determine how far we would have to extend the no parking zone to accommodate Mr. Draper's specific request to prevent and prohibit no parking in front of his residence. And that would require us to extend it to a little bit over 100 feet based off of satellite mapping, which is inconsistent with other restricted parking zones that we have in residential areas.
Any questions from the trustees or Chief Gutchow or comments? So trustee Masek,
No, whatever the chief thinks is adequate, it's fine.
trustee Peterson,
So if I'm sitting in my vehicle on Hardin Street, looking at Victoria, and I'm looking east, is your house right in front of me? Where are you off? You're more toward the north. Okay, and you requested that this parking is going to go 2 houses from you to the north? Okay. Okay, this is what we're doing, isn't it? You said that the 30 feet would,
30 feet from the intersection. Again, I'm not an engineer, so I defer to Administrator Keim's expertise in this area. Is that 30 feet would provide an adequate swing distance for a bus or a commercial vehicle to maneuver through the area. It's going to restrict parking on both sides of the roadway in that area. So it's going to alleviate the concern of bottlenecking, where cars are going to have to kind of weave in and out to get around other vehicles. So it'll restrict parking both sides of the road with 30 feet either direction of that intersection, provide ample space for a commercial vehicle or a bus to make that turn safely. I spoke with Mr. Draper after the meeting last time, and I said, this certainly, in my opinion, is an adequate starting point, but if it proves to be inadequate conceptually once we put it into practice, then we can take another look at it. Now we revise the ordinance if we see a need.
okay. That's all I have, Your Honor.
trustee Bluthart, no comment. Trustee Berman,
No comments.
trustee Dominiac,
no comment.
there's no comments. I'd ask for a roll, please.
Mason,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Luther.
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Dominiac.
Yes,
5 yes, 0 no, motion carries. Last item on the regular business is the consideration and approval of a resolution approving the site plan for Red Dot Storage located at 284 Main Street, resolution number 21-68. I'll entertain a motion in a second.
so moved.
Second.
Woo. All right, motion trustee Dominiac, second trustee Bluthart. Mr. Garrigan, will you please present to the board? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor, this is a proposal. This is a proposal for a new 4,500 square foot storage facility on the red dot. This is a existing PUD, which was developed, I think, somewhere between 2000, 2002. This was, again, generally consistent with the overall PUD. The applicant is proposing to construct a new 4,500 steel square foot storage facility. As it relates to the architecture, it would mirror the exact design of the existing buildings. So this will be incorporated seamlessly into the overall site plan. The overall site plan itself generally incorporates a gravel storage parking area, but the applicant has agreed with this new 4,500 square foot building that they will incorporate all asphalt. So what you'll see when you drive down Main Street, you'll see a new storage facility, which will again blend seamlessly into the existing storage buildings, but you'll see asphalt instead of gravel. In addition, staff has worked with the applicant as per the requirement of the Planning Commission to incorporate additional landscaping. So there's already extensive landscaping. Along Main Street. The applicant has agreed to actually incorporate additional landscaping between the air gaps. So you'll generally not see any storage building be fully screened from Main Street. That was one of the stipulations from the Planning Commission. The applicant did agree. They submitted a landscape plan that incorporates even more landscape than currently exists. So with that, the Planning Commission did recommend approval of this new building at the red dot storage. Mr. John Tack, who's the engineer for this project, is actually here. As it relates to stormwater, generally there'll be no stormwater changes. The water drains, I believe, to the south. So with that, we are recommending approval of the resolution that's actually in your packet. With that, I'll conclude my staff report and be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Garrigan. Trustee Masek, any questions? Trustee Peterson,
No questions. Your Honor.
trustee Bluthart, no question. Trustee Berman,
No question.
trustee Dominiac.
I have a question for Director Berrigan. In your recommendation, you state that the applicant's site plan conforms with the site plan ordinance with the exception of proposed metal building. You requested that the metal sheathing be replaced with fiber cement board, but then you're saying that we should, you are recommending that we move forward on this. Can you clarify that for me?
Yes, there was a discussion at the Planning Commission in lieu of the applicant adding additional landscaping, in lieu of the applicant adding additional asphalt. The Planning Commission felt that was appropriate to allow them to build the exact building that which was incorporating the PUD. So the overall design of this project was incorporated in the original PUD. As you well know, we technically don't allow metal buildings, but because this was the original PUD, I think that the actual proposed building will actually mirror the exact same design. They're all metal buildings. Staff was generally comfortable with that recommendation. So that's why we did not request that this be constructed with fiber cement board.
Thank you for the clarification. I have no other comments or questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the trustees? All right, roll call, please.
Mason,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Bluthart,
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Dominiac,
Yes.
5 voting yes, 0 no, motion carries. All right, on to the administrator's report. Any report? Okay. Okay, thank you. Village clerk report.
and I have no report now.
Any trustee reports other than those that we received in writing?
I have one thing that I'd like to raise.
Yes, trustee Dominiac.
Yeah, I just want to remind the board that on this Saturday, September 25th, during the wine walk, the village will be hosting a booth for to get resident input into the concepts from Lakota, which will be sent to us before the weekend. This is for both downtown, Toft, Main Street, Lake Street, and of course, the Pittman property. So if anybody has the time, and even if you're not doing the wine walk, if you want to go by and see what residents have to say, or even look at it yourself, that would be an opportunity. The other thing I wanted to ask was, when we do our reports verbally, they're part of the record. It's great to receive police reports and parks reports and public works reports sent to us via email. They're very helpful to know what's going on, but they don't become, as far as I know, part of the public record. So how are we communicating what's happening to the public? And should we be attaching those reports to the minutes, to post them on the website, whatever? Because when no one else gives a verbal report, then the public is not aware because it's not in the minutes.
So I'm, because they're just one person's report, I'm probably not comfortable putting them in the minutes. And maybe I suggest that if we are redoing the website, that we put those reports with this items. And I think Lori, I see a light bulb above her head right now.
Trustee Dominiac, the Zoom recordings from these meetings are placed on the website so the public can see them there, and they are a public record. They are subject to FOIA, so the public can get them that way as well. They're just not retained permanently like the minutes are.
But I don't think the public knows what those reports are. So, I mean, maybe one option would be people just do highlights. I don't know. It's just, we have information. It's not sharing that information with the public.
Sure, and yeah,
So,
maybe that's a good topic.
I'm just raising the question. I'm not necessarily looking for a solution right now, but I think it's something we should try and
But
figure out.
so we don't forget, it's probably also something that should be brought up to Jim Moran too when he starts. He might have some ideas on where to place
With
that.
what? I'm sorry?
With Jim Moran when he starts, I think first week of October, he might have some suggestions on where to place that too.
Thank you.
But yeah,
That's all I have.
still consider it. Thank you. Anything else? Trustee Berman had something for a report.
I just wanted to bring up about Little Miss Antioch, Audrey, and I think I'm botching up the last name, Rules. Is that Rules? Her event, which is on Saturday, October 2nd, at the band shell from 5:30 to 7 p.m. It's a PJ party. The kids wear their PJs and they bring a pair of PJs to donate for children in foster care, so they can get a good night's rest as well. And so they're asking for new pajamas, long sleeve, long pants with tags in all kid sizes. And there will be a parade and a bedtime story and a glow stick party.
Thank you. That is it. And unless any trustee requests executive session, I would entertain the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Trustee, a motion by
Second.
trustee Peterson, second by trustee Dominiac. Roll, please.
Mason,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Luther,
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Dominiac.
5
Yes.
yes. 5 yes, 0 no. Motion carries. Meeting adjourned.